Hello, everyone. Welcome to Backyard Musing, broadcasting live from Apple Valley. I'm Steve.
I'm Scott.
Thank you for joining us this morning. We previously did a segment on Titan, the Dragonfly mission, and now we're going to do we wanted to do a segment on Europa Clipper, and here it is. NASA's Europa Clipper spacecraft is on its way to help solve a quarter-century-old mystery. Could anything live in the ocean that lurks beneath the icy shelf of Jupiter's moon, Europa? That's kind of being melodramatic, that lurks beneath. But scientists think that there's a lake under all that ice. It's like the entire moon is covered by ice. So this is a mission we've been dreaming of for 25 years, quote, now since I was in graduate school, says planetary geologist Cynthia Phillips of NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab in Pasadena. It's a generational mission. Would you like to know more?
So in October 10 launch from Kennedy Space Center in Florida had been scrubbed due to the hurricane that we had here a couple months ago, Hurricane Milton on October 14th. So the spacecraft lifted off just past noon Eastern time and started its 5.5-year trek to Jupiter. That's a long time. Once that, kind of what we were talking about the other day, right? Some of these guys may be involved in this thing. They may not even be around
generational,
long enough to even see the fruits of their labor. So
yeah.
So once there, Clipper will settle into orbit around the giant planet in April of 2030, repeatedly zipping past the icy moon to get snapshots of its frozen terrain, measure the chemical composition of the surface, and deduce the moon's internal structure. Kind of like what we did that with the moon. We've done that with Mars, Venus. Yeah, that's what they do.
We can do it here too.
Yeah.
So here's a quote. Quote, we think that ocean worlds might actually be a common type of world outside of our solar system, said NASA's head of planetary science, Gina DiBraccio, in a September 17th news conference. Clipper will be the first in-depth mission that will allow us to characterize habitability on what could be the most common type of inhabited world in our universe, end quote. Planetary scientists have grown increasingly certain that Europa hosts a subsurface ocean ever since NASA's Galileo spacecraft visited Jupiter in the 1990s. I remember when Galileo did that. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. During the Galileo mission, again, this is a quote, it was like a detective story, Phillips said. The clues built up. A lack of craters, suggesting the surface is always moving and changing. Stripes, cracks, and pits, suggesting upwelling from below. Regions known as chaos terrain that look like icebergs tilted in a sloshy sea. And finally, the measurement of an internal magnetic field induced by Jupiter's external one. That was the coup de grace, Phillips said. The only geological plausible material capable of carrying that magnetic field is salt water. So
yeah, cool. If it's salt water, that'd be so cool.
Yeah.
On Earth, water means life, but the findings on Europa weren't enough to declare it a habitable world. Many mysteries remain. How deep is the ocean? How thick is the ice shell? And crucially, how do they interact? Could material... Remember we talked about the other day, we were talking about CO2 and how it interacts with the ocean and the bottom of the ocean and the atmosphere. Could material from the surface make it down into the briny deep to provide food for waiting microbes? Europa Clipper, named for the speedy clipper ships of the 19th century, is poised to pick up where Galileo left off. The spacecraft is charged with investigating Europa's habitability by searching for three key ingredients: water, energy, and organic compounds.
The spacecraft won't orbit Europa directly. The moon lies within Jupiter's punishing radiation environment, where higher energy charged particles accelerated by the planet's magnetic field could fry spacecraft components. Instead, Clipper will dip in and out of the zone of radiation to zip past Europa at least 49 times, aiming all 9 of its instruments at the moon at once, each time retreating to calmer territory to process the data and send it back to Earth. Fascinating.
Yeah. One of the first things Clipper will do when it arrives is confirm or possibly refute the presence of the subsurface ocean. How the moon gravitationally tugs on the spacecraft will reveal details of its interior immediately, said Deputy Project Scientist Bonnie Barati of JPL in the news conference. Next will come the pictures. Galileo's antenna never deployed properly, so its images were not as sharp as they could have been, Phillips says. Galileo's spectrometer wasn't designed to work at Europa either, so scientists struggled to tease out the composition of anything that wasn't ice on the surface. Clipper's images and spectra will reveal clues about the chemical components of the surface and possibly the subsurface that Galileo never could.
Finally, Clipper will delve into details like the thickness of the crust, the depth of the ocean, and how they interact. There are some limitations. Clipper's gaze won't reach the bottom of the ocean where rock and water meet. That might be the most likely place for microbial ecosystems to nestle themselves, similar to seafloor vents on Earth. But Clipper won't be able to sense them directly. There is, however, strong circumstantial evidence that water sometimes comes to the surface, whether it plumes of vapor or slower seeping streams or lakes, and may deposit any other material it's called up onto the ice. Clipper will search for chemicals on the surface and infer what could be brewing in the murky depths.
Here's a quote. The Holy Grail would be if we saw something like an amino acid on the surface, Barati says. Ooh. But just seeing a lot of organic molecules, there will be good evidence that we have all the requisites for life. What Clipper won't do is look directly for life. We don't have a tricorder we can point at Europa and say, it's life, Jim, like in Star Trek, Phillips says. It's going to be multiple lines of indirect evidence again. To do a life detection mission, she says, you're going to have to touch that surface or maybe get beneath it. Who knows? There might be sharks down there. Megalodon might be underneath. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I don't know, but to be able to develop some type of a landing craft and something that can take samples from this moon, that's going to be way cool. Whether that happens in my lifetime, it's going to happen in somebody's lifetime. These people have a habit of just not giving up on this stuff. So
yeah, and they've got to overcome that radiation frying the circuits first. Otherwise, it'll just crash and burn on the surface. That might be neat to watch from orbit. You know,
well, they'll probably have to send down some exploratory stuff just to see how different
probe.
Things. They'll do it in a warehouse someplace or something. I don't know.
Like how the Empire did with Hoth, Scott. They sent down some probes.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. With how long she's had to wait to get to Europa, Phillips doesn't expect to see that mission herself, but she hopes scientists won't have to wait another 25 years. Quote, I hope that momentum will build, she says. I accept that I'm probably not going to see that Europa submarine, but hopefully my kids or maybe my grandkids will.
There you go.
Completely fascinating.
Optimistic, and that's how these people work. You know, it's not like I don't want to get involved because I'm not going to see the fruits of my labor. So they start these projects and somebody takes over and just keeps on pushing. So I love it.
Right now, it probably feels like Europa because it's pretty cold here in the backyard. I got my hands in my pockets. My fingers are a little bit.
Yep. I didn't mean to bail on you today, but I don't want to relapse. So.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, that's cool. Nasty. All right, so folks, join us this afternoon. We're going to have some more interesting. I just sent the notes, or our producer just sent the notes over to Scott and I about what we're going to be talking about tomorrow, and it's pretty cool.
All right, you guys. I'll have a good day. Take care.
All right, talk to you later. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so.